Hi, this is Gabe from FluentForever.com. At this point, we've gone through all the sounds of Hungarian. If you're using one of my pronunciation trainers, it's going to take you through all of these sounds, train your ears to hear them more accurately, and teach you the spellings that produce them. Then it'll push all that data into your long-term memory. And if you're not, that's fine too. I made these videos to give you a passing familiarity with all the sounds of Hungarian, so that when you study them in depth, they're going to feel more familiar. That'll make them easier to learn. In either case, I want to cover a couple of important Hungarian spelling rules before we finish, because they're the rules that require just a touch of explanation, rather than straight memorization. So let's get started. Our first topic is consonant voicing and devoicing. So here's the idea. Almost every consonant, in English and in Hungarian, comes in voiced and unvoiced versions. You can get a feel for this by putting your hand on your throat and saying zzz. You should feel buzzing in your throat, zzz. And that buzzing means that zzz is a voiced consonant. If you do the exact same thing but say s instead, you'll find that there is no buzzing. S is the unvoiced version of zzz. Most of Hungarian's consonants, they're paired up like this.
B is voiced p. Y is voiced ch. G is voiced k. D is voiced t. Z is voiced ц. J is voiced sh. J is voiced ch. Z is voiced s. And V is voiced f.
Now, when you find a consonant on its own, meaning that there are no other consonants right next to it, in the beginning or middle or end of a word, then you don't need to care about voicing. B sounds like B, and P sounds like P. The places you have to pay attention are whenever you see more than one consonant stuck together. In particular, when you have consonants that are next to each other, but some of them are voiced and some are not. We actually run into this same problem in English when we pluralize words. If, for instance, you take the English word ant and you pluralize it, then you get ants. There's an unvoiced T and an unvoiced S together, ts, and those two consonants work together just fine, no problem at all. But if you take a word like bug and you pluralize it, suddenly there's a problem. It's really hard to put a voiced g with an unvoiced s and say bugs. And so we don't say bugs, we say bugs, turning that s into a z. Hungarian handles this problem by taking the voicing of whatever consonant comes last in the group and using it for all the consonants that come before it. Basically, you look at whatever's happening on the right side of the group and apply that to the consonants on the left side of the group. So, if the consonant on the far right of any group is voiceless, for instance a T, then all the consonants next to it will be voiceless too.
As in fogtam, where the g in the middle turns into a k. Fogtam. And ágytól, where the j in the middle turns into a ch. Ágytól.
Conversely, if the consonant on the far right is voiced, then all the consonants in the group will be voiced.
As in hétből, that T in the middle turns into a D.
This is a rule that you can get used to pretty quickly
because it's so hard to say something like fogtam, ágytól, or hétből.
So that's all for voicing. But there are actually a few spelling rules in Hungarian that work very similarly. These are rules that only affect groups of consonants, usually just two of them together. And just like voicing, the final consonant on the right can change the consonant on the left. This type of behavior is called assimilation, and there are four kinds of assimilation that happen in Hungarian. The first one was voicing assimilation, and we already discussed that. And the rest are called palatal assimilation, sibilant assimilation, and nasal place assimilation. We'll go through them in that order.
Palatal assimilation happens when the consonant on the right is a y, a ch, or a j.
It's the consonant made with the middle of your tongue at your soft palate. When that happens, then it will sometimes make the consonant on the left shift locations in your mouth over to your soft palate.
So that gives you words like látja and hídja.
The reason for this rule is that it's actually somewhat difficult to not pronounce words this way. If you wanted to really pronounce each consonant distinctly, you would have to say látja and hídja, which involves a somewhat awkward jolting maneuver in the middle. Palatal assimilation basically just takes two consonants that can be made in the middle of your mouth and merges them together. You'll notice that the final result in the IPA is one long consonant.
It's látja and hídja, not látja or hídja.
The examples we've chosen here are single words rather than compound words. So they're words like Magneto versus words like Spider-Man, as we talked about in the last video during vowel harmony. For compound words, You actually can choose to pronounce consonant combinations like these assimilated or not, and they're both correct.
So you can say atjön or atjön.
And they're both fine. But I'd recommend just sticking with the rules all the time. It's going to be easier for you to get used to. The next kind of assimilation we'll discuss, this is called sibilant assimilation, and it's really, really similar. This time, you're looking at cases where the consonant on the right is some kind of sibilant sound, like the unvoiced s, sh, and ch, or the voiced z, zh, and j. When that happens, and when the consonant on the left is made in a similar spot in your mouth, then you're going to merge both sounds into one long consonant that generally matches the consonant on the right.
So here's pirosszínű, and here's házsor.
And that's done because, again, it's hard to say something like piros színű, or házsor, zsh.
So it's just pirosszínű and házsor.
Házsor is actually a great example of how Hungarian spelling can be tricky when you run into compound words. ZS in Hungarian is generally pronounced zh.
And if this was just a single long word, it'd be pronounced házsor.
But this is not just a single word.
It's a combination of ház, house, and sor, row.
It's a house row. And how are you supposed to know whether this is a single ZS, zh consonant, or a Z ending one word followed by a sh in another? Well, you just have to know what the word means, unfortunately. As you learn Hungarian vocabulary, this will get easier, but it's definitely something to watch out for, and it's definitely tricky, especially in the beginning. Our last type of assimilation. This is called nasal place assimilation, and it mostly has to do with what happens when you see an N on the left side of a consonant cluster. In cases like that, the N will sometimes change a bit so that it's easier to pronounce. We actually do this in English. If you have an N before a G sound, like in the word hang, you're going to pronounce that N with the back of your tongue rather than the front. You don't say hang, you say hang.
And Hungarian says hung.
There are a few more simplifications just like that. Before an M or a B or a P, anything made with your lips, you'll get an M.
So it's simpod and not színpad. And before palatal consonants like ch and j, you get a ny sound. So it's pinch, not pinch.
And that's all for assimilation. We have two quick topics left. The first is just about recognizing double consonants. Back in video 1, we introduced you to some examples of double consonants.
Like géppel, len, and varra.
These were super easy to spot in the spelling. If it's a consonant that's written twice in a row, it's a double consonant. Easy.
So then the question becomes, what do you do when your consonant is j or ch or j?
Basically, what do you do when you want a double consonant, but it takes 2 letters to write one consonant? And the answer ends up being that you'll double the first consonant in the spelling. That was actually our very first example.
We had megy and megy. And the way you know to double the consonant in megy is by writing that G twice. Megy.
The only other thing I want to mention with double consonants is that there are some words that are kind of annoying exceptions to these rules, where you'll see a double consonant written but not pronounced.
As in állat.
Which, according to the spelling, should definitely have a double L and definitely doesn't. These are cases where you just have to memorize, but they're fortunately not overly common. Our last topic, that's going to be word stress, and it is super easy in Hungarian. Hungarian has one simple rule when it comes to word stress. You always stress the first syllable. That's it.
This is bridgekártya.
And it would be incorrect to stress the second syllable.
As in bridgekártya.
Or the third syllable.
As in bridgekártya.
And it's the same in basically every Hungarian word.
So this is surfdeska, and this is strandkalap.
Always syllable 1. There are 4 exceptions to this in the entire Hungarian language, and they are also super simple.
Those exceptions are a and az.
Both of which mean the, as in the mouse or the sunshine.
Egy.
Which means as in a pen.
And is.
Which means to, as in me too. Whenever they show up in a sentence, these 4 words are totally unstressed.
So here's szép a napsütés and ott az egér. So it's not szép a napsütés, it's szép a napsütés. And it's not ott az egér, it's ott az egér.
You just run right through those 4 words, almost as if they were an extra syllable at the end of the previous word. And with that, we are all done with Hungarian. To quickly review, we began by talking about 4 different kinds of assimilation. places where two consonants stuck together to affect each other or merge in some way. The first was voicing assimilation. Our rule is that we'd look to see whether the last consonant in a group was voiced or not, and then we'd make the first consonants in that group match. That gave us examples where a voiced consonant will become unvoiced.
Like in fogtam, where the g in the middle turns into a k. Fogtam.
And examples where an unvoiced consonant turns into a voiced consonant.
Like in hédből, that t in the middle turns into a d. Hédből.
Next, we talked about palatal assimilation.
This is where the consonant on the right is a y, a ch, or a y.
It's made with the middle of your tongue against your soft palate, and that sometimes causes the consonant on the left to merge with it and form one big double consonant.
So that gives you words like látja and hídja.
Then we talked about sibilant assimilation. This was a similar concept but involved sibilant sounds, like the unvoiced s, sh, and ch, or the voiced z, zh, and j. When the consonant on the left is also made in a similar spot, then the two consonants will merge together into one big double consonant.
Like in piros színű and hássor.
And our last kind of assimilation was nasal place assimilation, which meant that n followed by a back consonant, like g or k, turns into a back n.
As in hong.
N followed by an m or a b or a p, anything made with your lips, this turns into an m.
As in simpod. And an n followed by palatal consonants like ch and y gives you n, as in pinch.
After that, we talked about how double consonants are written. Basically, you're going to write that letter twice.
As in géppel.
Or if the double consonant is generally written as a combination of two letters, then you'll write the first letter twice.
As in megy.
We also mentioned that there are some exceptional words that are written with double consonants but pronounced singly.
Like állat.
You'll just need to memorize words like those. Finally, we covered the single simple rule of Hungarian word stress, that the first syllable in every word is stressed.
As in bridgekártya and surfdeska.
There were only 4 exceptions to this rule in the whole language,
which were a, az, egy, and is.
All of these words were unstressed.
As in szép a napsütés or ott az egér.
And with that, we are finished with our review and we are done with Hungarian. If you need a hand in memorizing all of this stuff and training your ears to hear it, then grab a Hungarian trainer from my website linked below. You'll have all of this memorized within a couple of weeks. I'll see you next time.